There is something deeply unsettling about walking into a place that was built for children and finding it empty. Poppy Playtime's portrayal of such a setting shows just how intricately it understands this. The abandoned Playtime Co factory is a monument to promises broken on a massive scale. Bright murals of smiling mascots still line the walls. Cheerful jingles still echo through speakers that no one has turned off in a decade. Posters still advertise toys designed to be a child's best friend. And yet every hallway feels wrong, every shadow hides something sinister, and every step forward reveals another layer of rot beneath the colorful paint. The genius of Poppy Playtime is in how it makes you feel like an intruder in a graveyard that refuses to admit what it buried. You are a former employee returning to a factory where your co-workers vanished 10 years ago, and nobody came looking. Nobody investigated. Nobody cared enough to ask what happened to an entire workforce that simply ceased to exist one August afternoon in 1995. The world moved on, and Playtime Co. was left to decay with its secrets intact. But secrets have a way of surviving, and the ones buried beneath this factory are still very much alive. Playtime Co. did not just manufacture toys, it manufactured children into toys. Orphans who came seeking shelter were tested, evaluated, and transformed into the very products the company sold. Their memories were erased, their bodies were reshaped, and their suffering was repackaged as innovation, marketed to families who had no idea what they were really buying. The truth is scattered throughout the facility in documents, VHS tapes, and internal memos that were never meant to see the light of day. The worst atrocities are often meticulously documented, filed away by people who never imagined anyone would come looking. The game forces you to face something uncomfortable, that the very institutions designed to protect the vulnerable may be the ones best equipped to exploit them. An orphanage provides the perfect cover, children with no families to ask questions, no advocates to raise alarms, and no one who would notice if they simply disappeared one day. Those who ran Playtime Co. understood something fundamental about power. The easiest way to preserve yourself is to build systems that sacrifice others on your behalf. The executives kept their distance, the scientists followed orders, and the paperwork was carefully worded to insulate everyone who mattered from consequences that never came. Playtime Co. built its empire on the bodies of those society had already forgotten, and the monsters that now roam these halls are not invaders. They are the evidence of what happens when the powerful preserve themselves at any cost, and the vulnerable are left with nothing to preserve at all. Welcome back, my name's Wick, and today we're going to examine how Poppy Playtime explores self-preservation. The year is 2005, and you find yourself standing outside a building that should no longer exist. It all begins with unexpected mail arriving at your home, a letter accompanied by a VHS tape containing a tampered version of an old Playtime Co. commercial. The letter is riddled with unusual, almost childlike misspellings, but the message cuts through clearly. The missing employees are still here. After reading the letter and watching the tape, you make the decision to return to the factory where you once worked, a place where the entire staff vanished without explanation a decade prior. You step through the doors of the main entrance and obtain a green VHS tape, inserting it into a nearby VCR. The recording belongs to Leith Pierre, head of innovation at Playtime Co., and his words carry a certain corporate arrogance. Pierre mentions the factory's hidden motion detectors, systems designed to trigger emergency alarms and notify police immediately, but then he alludes to something far more sinister, suggesting that far more dangerous security measures exist within the building and that motion detectors are among the more tame aspects of protection here.
Hi, my name is Leith Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at the Playtime Co. toy factory. If you're seeing this, then you're trespassing.
He ends the tape by telling any potential intruder that he hopes whatever they came here for is worth it. The factory around you tells a story of its own. Elliot Ludwig founded Playtime Co. in 1930 with the dream of entertaining children across the globe, and it quickly became the most famous toy manufacturing company of its era. Ludwig was a man consumed by his work, devoting every waking moment to designing and crafting toys, often working overtime without rest. His dedication strained his marriage, and his wife Molly divorced him in the very same year of Playtime Co.'s founding. For 2 decades, the company struggled to innovate, but everything changed in 1950 when Poppy Playtime was created with the intent of behaving and interacting in ways that humans do, such as talking and holding conversations.
Hi, my name is Poppy. I love you. Can you help me polish my shoes?
Why, of course.
A revolutionary doll was introduced in the vintage Poppy commercial, the same commercial spliced into the tape you received. As you explore the decaying entrance hall, the contrast between what Playtime Co. presented itself as and what it actually was becomes impossible to ignore. The company held an obsession with maintaining secrecy and confidentiality, so much so that employees were discouraged from speaking to one another. The official excuse claimed the rule would secure the company, but its real purpose was to hide something far darker. One employee's notebook entry sheds light on a culture of silence. If you thought you saw something odd or disturbing, perhaps something that might interest law enforcement, you were expected to remember that no, you did not. Cheerful murals on the walls advertise toys designed to bring joy, and posters promise a magical experience for visiting families. Playtime Co. began offering factory tours for $2.99 per visitor, an entire hour in what they called the most magical toy factory on Earth. But the magic was a performance, and the stage was set for horrors that the public would never be allowed to see. You unlock the security office and watch the blue VHS tape, a mandatory training video introducing the Grab Pack, a revolutionary tool that Playtime Co. employees used for their work. Once you take the Grab Pack, which currently only has one arm, you use it to enter the lobby, and there, standing in the center of the room with a permanent grin stretched across its blue fur, is a giant statue of Huggy Wuggy. Huggy Wuggy was a toy created and produced by Playtime Co. in 1984, and due to the toy's success in the market, he served as the company's mascot, presumably until its closure in 1995. The original design was meant to look plush and cuddly, a lanky blue creature with soft fur and outstretched arms, built to give children endless hugs. He quickly became a massive success and eventually the company's best-selling toy. But the thing standing in the lobby is not a toy. It is not even a mascot in any meaningful sense anymore. Huggy Wuggy is highly obedient and reacts aggressively when faced with threats. His purpose is to function as part of the factory's security while spending the day posing as a statue in the lobby, a living surveillance system, a mascot by day, and a predator by night. Huggy is presumed to have been the one who wrote countless words within the walls of the conveyor belt system, as some writing in the ventilation shaft declares that this is not his body. Other scrawled messages read that he is starving and so hungry, desperate, fragmented words that suggest he is more than just a toy. Posters featuring Huggy can be found throughout the facility, reminding workers to take breaks, but the fine print reveals that any break longer than 10 minutes is not permitted. Other posters state ominously that you cannot leave without a toy. The juxtaposition here is unsettling, a company that plasters its walls with cheerful reminders about employee wellness while simultaneously enforcing rigid, dehumanizing restrictions. The messaging feels less like corporate policy and more like a warning dressed in bright colors. You watch an interview tape and hear a prospective employee describing her joy at tapping into her inner child. She expresses a belief that everyone remains a child inside despite human bodies aging, noting that people cannot live forever.
So, Stella, what made you want to work at the Playtime Co. factory?
Playing with toys when I was young was so magical. I could go straight from my bedroom floor to anywhere in the world. It was such a great feeling. I don't think anyone ever really feels like an adult, but your body just gets older and older, and then you die. Poof! Human bodies just can't stay young forever.
These two details crystallize a theme that runs through every corner of the factory, the desperate drive for self-preservation. The break time posters twist the concept of rest and care into tools for maintaining control over the workforce, ensuring the company's survival above all else, while the employees' words about never truly growing up take on a chilling new weight, a reflection of those who would do anything to persist. Self-preservation takes on a horrific new meaning when you consider what Playtime Co. was actually doing behind closed doors. The company found a way to ensure its own continuity, not through innovation or legacy, but through the transformation of people into something no longer human, sacrificing others so that its creations, and by extension itself, could endure forever. When you restore power to the factory, Huggy vanishes from his pedestal. Solving the puzzle in the power room triggers him to leave his post and begin stalking you, watching from vents and doorways, waiting for the moment to strike. The game understands that anticipation is its own form of horror, knowing something is watching you but not knowing when it will act. That moment comes in the Make a Friend room, a place designed for children to build their own toys as souvenirs. A console button sits in the middle of the room, and pressing it triggers the machinery to come to life. The machine proudly declares that the right pieces create a new toy, eliminating backbreaking labor. On the surface, it reads as a celebration of automation, machinery replacing the grueling work once done by human hands. But the right pieces were not plastic and stuffing, and the labor being eliminated was not factory work but humanity itself. The company had found a way to manufacture something far more valuable than toys, living, obedient creatures who no longer needed wages, breaks, or rights. You create a toy, place it on a scale, and the door opens. As you move toward the darkened corridor, Huggy Wuggy emerges from the shadows. There is no build-up and no warning beyond the creeping dread you have carried since you first saw him in the lobby. One moment the hallway is dark and still, and the next, an 18-foot nightmare with needle-like teeth is hurtling towards you. As you navigate through a maze-like ventilation system, Huggy Wuggy chases you and mirrors your every move. The vents are tight and claustrophobic, hence the chapter's title, A Tight Squeeze. Avoiding a menacing presence like his is crucial, as you wind through vents and negotiate the factory's labyrinthine network of passages. Every turn could lead to safety, or to those impossibly long arms reaching for you, and his limbs bend and flex bonelessly, allowing him to squeeze through spaces that should be impossible for his size. Eventually, you reach a pair of catwalks where Huggy fiercely pounds on a closed ventilation door. You spot a large crate above and pull it down with your grab pack, and as Huggy crashes through the door, he becomes trapped under the falling weight, sending both of you to the catwalk below. Though you manage to land safely, Huggy falls into the depths of the Playtime Co factory after colliding with a series of large pipes, spraying blood upon impact. Huggy may be gone for now, but the horror of what he represents lingers. The company designed him to hug children forever, and then they took an actual child and transformed him into something that kills by hugging. What makes Huggy Wuggy so tragic is the possibility that the violence is not malice but instinct, the raw, desperate act of self-preservation. He was programmed to embrace, to hold, to never let go, and now that programming has been twisted into something lethal. The hugs that harm may not come from a desire to kill, but from a fractured need to survive. Someone who once craved affection now clinging to anything it catches because letting go means being alone, forgotten, discarded. Huggy doesn't chase you out of hunger or hatred. He chases you because contact is the only proof he still exists, and the very company that created him made sure that his only means of preserving himself would destroy anyone he reached for. After sending Huggy Wuggy plummeting into the depths of the factory, you find yourself alone on the catwalks, surrounded by pipes, wires, and the lingering echoes of what just tried to kill you. As you navigate the catwalk, you make your way toward a door framed by a large flower. There is no threat here. But before you enter, one more piece of the puzzle waits to be found. You discover a tape on the catwalks just outside the Poppy area, the black VHS tape, and what it contains changes everything you thought you understood about this place. During an event called the Hour of Joy on August 8, 1995, a scientist records what he lists as the final log in relation to Experiment 1006, who also goes by the alias The Prototype.
Final log in relation, Experiment 1006, The Prototype. Coordination and cooperation is evidently within his skill set, as well as the skill set of all other experiments of his type. Though still missing, today's events are no doubt in relation to him. His absence was a flaw in the scientific process, which should have under no circumstances been left unaccounted for. That's why I'm making this log, so that the same mistake won't be made twice. Any future experiments will need to be contained and disposed of in a secure location. I'm not worried about myself. One breakthrough and I'll be back. We must forge onwards in the name of science, whether those who are beneath us understand it or not. End of...
The scientist explains that the prototype possesses precise coordination and cooperation skills, but there is fear in his voice and something is clearly wrong. Unlike in prior logs, the prototype seems to have been missing for some time. In the background of the final log, people can be heard screaming as the monsters roam freely around the factory. The scientist attempts to conclude his recording, explaining that any future experiments must be contained and disposed of in a secure location, but he never finishes. Toward the end, he is interrupted and killed by an unknown creature, after which the tape cuts to static. This is the first real confirmation of what happened here 10 years ago. The experiments escaped, the staff died, and something called the prototype orchestrated all of it. With that grim knowledge, you approach the flower door. As you get closer to the end of the catwalks, a giant flower appears in front of you, surrounded by multiple bloody hanging toys. These toys have been strung up in a damaged state outside the door, and in the middle of the flower sits an entrance surrounded by drawings telling you not to go through it. Arrows point away, some seemingly toward the edge of the catwalk itself. The warnings may have been trying to tell you that death would be preferable to whatever awaits beyond that door. You go through it anyway. The interior of the Poppy area is meant to represent a child's room with a wooden staircase visible when you first enter. Going down the long staircase and then through a lengthy hallway introduces a room with wooden furniture and blue pillows scattered about, and a large dollhouse sits in the corner. The space feels almost peaceful, the complete opposite of the industrial horror you just escaped. It is the kind of room a loving father might build for his daughter. You can hear a soft melody as you approach the room's end where a door awaits. Upon opening the doors, you discover a sparsely furnished shrine decorated with colorful pillows and dimly lit by pink lights, and there, in the center of the room, resting inside a locked glass case, is a doll. This is Poppy Playtime, the toy that put the company on the map. Elliot Ludwig originally released the doll in 1950, designed to behave and interact with her owner in a realistic way, a feature demonstrated through a supposedly natural conversation shown during the vintage Poppy commercial. Ludwig explained in an interview how the toy was based on his own daughter, Poppy, and the doll quickly turned out to be the breakthrough Playtime Co needed, putting the company on the map as a leader in toy innovation. But something went wrong in the 1960s. A family member of Ludwig's died, devastating him greatly. This family member was likely his daughter, as it is believed that at some point a living Poppy Playtime doll was created using the biological parts of his child. The grief of losing her may have been what pushed Ludwig toward increasingly desperate experiments, horrific attempts to bring back what he had lost. You free Poppy from her case by shooting your grab pack hand at the glass and yanking it open. When you do this, Poppy opens her eyes, and the screen turns black. Poppy's voice is soft and childlike. She acknowledges her release, and then you lose consciousness. The prototype was the one who locked her away in that glass case until you freed her in 2005. For 10 years she has been trapped here, aware, conscious, and waiting. The same entity that orchestrated the massacre in the factory also imprisoned the one experiment it could not control. This is the first glimpse of what Poppy Playtime is really about. The mascots are not possessed animatronics or haunted dolls in the traditional sense. They are something far worse, and the truth of their creation remains buried in the factory's depths. At the center of it all is a little girl who may have been brought back from the dead by a father's grief, only to witness the corruption of everything he built. The chapter ends with questions rather than answers. Who is the prototype? Why did it spare Poppy? What happened during the hour of joy, and what role did she play in it? The full scope of this place's horrors remains hidden somewhere below. You came here looking for missing employees. What you found instead was evidence of something far worse, a company that twisted love into something unrecognizable and called it innovation. In the end, Playtime Co. did not just take lives. It took the very concept of childhood and hollowed it out, leaving behind only plastic smiles and the faint echo of lullabies no one was meant to hear.
You're in grave danger. She's watching your every move. So you better be careful. Mommy doesn't like guests. A new playmate! It's been so long.
Chapter 2 begins exactly where Chapter 1 ended, in Poppy's room, except now her case stands empty and the way you came has been blocked. There is nothing else in the room, so you turn around and walk back down the hallway until you reach the room with the dollhouses. Along the way, you stumble upon destroyed toys surrounded by blood splatter, a visceral reminder of the human nature hidden beneath their plastic exteriors. With Poppy creepily giving you directions from an unknown location, you find yourself unlocking the door to the office of Elliot Ludwig, founder of Playtime Co. The office has a vintage wooden feel to it, decorative patterns on the carpet, a wooden manager's desk standing at the front of the room, leather couches arranged neatly, and drawings from children scattered across the walls. It feels like stepping into a time capsule, the workspace of a man who built an empire on the promise of childhood joy. You find a VHS tape, and after watching it, you learn a little more about Ludwig. The tape is a documentary about him, and every time he appears, his face is censored in some way. The narration mentions that Elliot lost a loved one and threw himself into his work at Playtime Co. after that death. Even in a corporate biography designed to celebrate the man, there are shadows, details obscured, grief transformed into obsession. The persistent censorship of Ludwig's face carries a weight that extends beyond simple anonymity. Here is a man who dedicated his life to bringing joy to children, yet we are never allowed to see him. The absence is intentional, as though showing his face would reveal something the narrative cannot afford to expose. In a story about self-preservation, the facelessness of its architect is deeply symbolic. Ludwig didn't just want to survive, he wanted to become something beyond the reach of time, consequence, and accountability. By erasing his own image, he erased the last trace of the man who could be held responsible. You cannot put a face to what he became because that was the point. Self-preservation, taken to its absolute extreme, means shedding everything that makes you identifiable, vulnerable, and mortal. What remains is not a person, but a presence woven into the walls of what he built, persisting long after he should have been gone. On the desk sits the Elliot Ludwig biography alongside the Experiment 814 document. The document describes early experiments attempting to revive dead organisms using poppy flowers, and it was found in the founder's personal office. You open a large vent in the back of the room and descend into a storage-like area where you are startled by a box falling from a platform, revealing Poppy. She thanks you for freeing her and explains that she was stuck in her case for a very long time, then offers to pay you back by helping you escape.
Thank you for freeing me. I was stuck in there for so long. Thank you. I'd like to pay you back. There's a train station nearby. It needs a code, and I have it. Well, I'm still a doll.
Poppy provides the activation code for the factory's train as her way of repaying the favor. However, before she does this, she is grabbed and pulled deeper into the factory through a hole in the ground. You have no choice but to follow, jumping down after her into the unknown.
Listen, I'm going to need you to trust me.
As you approach the game station and the train, you encounter a giant spider-like monster called Mommy Longlegs. She steals a hand from your grab pack, reveals that she is holding Poppy hostage, and challenges you to win 3 games in the game station in exchange for the train's code, threatening to eat your insides while you are still alive if you break the rules. The way Mommy Longlegs holds Poppy is deeply unsettling, cradling her like a child would cradle a doll, speaking on her behalf as though Poppy were merely a plaything, incapable of her own voice. There is a cruel irony in this dynamic. A monster who was once a child now treats another victim as a toy, mimicking the very hierarchy that destroyed them both. It reveals how deeply the trauma of this place has embedded itself. Even among the experiments, there exists a pecking order where the powerful reduce others to objects. Those at the top have always understood that true security comes not only from strength, but from what you possess and who you control. The game station itself is a sprawling playground, an underground area with no natural light. A formal request form raised this as a concern and requested that the company add fake windows to ensure children maintained good mental health. The station contains a series of playground structures for kids to enjoy while waiting for the next minigame to start. Incredibly colorful constructions full of red, yellow, and blue. To any child, this place would have seemed like paradise. Slides, monkey bars, spinning wheels, and games waiting to be played. But the game station was never built for fun. Following the proposal of the Bigger Bodies initiative, Playtime Co. had Warrenbach Construction build the game station, though the construction company was never made aware of its true intentions.
What in the world would a toy company need with a prison? When my people were building Playcare, all Mr. Ludwig could talk about was how much good it could do. And all you needed was a look at the man to know he believed every word of it. I need to hear that this is still the same company. If we're going to make this thing for you, then I need that assurance.
In 1972, you signed a contract, a legally binding piece of paper that says whatever is asked of you, you do it. We asked. You did. In 1990, you signed another, a renewal. In it, had you bothered at all to read it, you'd have found a small clause. Any and all directives will be accomplished in the appropriate time and with appropriate compensation should the project be completed to satisfaction.
The facility's supposedly innocent minigames were secretly designed to test specific abilities of the orphan players, measuring their capabilities so they could later be transformed into their assigned toys with the necessary physical traits for designated job roles. This is where the theme of self-preservation takes its most insidious form. The children were not dragged into laboratories or strapped to tables. They were handed games and told to have fun. Every laugh, every moment of joy, every competitive thrill was being harvested and cataloged by scientists watching from behind glass. There is a painful irony here. Play is how children preserve themselves, how they make sense of the world, hold on to wonder, and protect the part of themselves that is still forming. It is, in the purest sense, how the inner child survives. But Playtime Co. hijacked that instinct entirely, turning the children's own means of self-preservation into the mechanism of their destruction. The children played to stay children. The company let them play so they never would be again. An orphan was assigned a toy and had to complete 3 minigames designed to test brain speed and efficiency, reaction time, and physical endurance and strength. The children never knew they were being evaluated so critically. They only thought they were playing. Stella Graber was the head of Playcare, and her friendly personality helped her secure major positions managing the game station. She recorded the game messages for the facility, serving as the intercom voice whenever you pulled a lever to open each of the games. The children would be guided by Mommy Longlegs while waiting for pre-recorded announcements from Stella Graber, which would direct them to the next minigame. The children thought they were playing for fun, but they were actually playing for their very lives. If they performed well, the orphan would be sent back to Playcare, where scientists used poppy gas and electrical shocks to turn them into their assigned toy. At night, a red smoke was released that would make the children fall asleep, allowing scientists to carry out their duties and remove any children selected for the horrific process of transformation. The children who scored highest on the games were rewarded with conversion into monsters, while those who performed poorly were spared, at least temporarily. One form describes a child named Michaela, who had been assigned to the toy candy cat, noting her performance across all 3 games, and adding a chilling detail. She was screaming and pointing at something during statues when nothing was there. Now you must play these same games, not as an orphan being evaluated, but as a survivor trying to escape. The first game is Musical Memory, which works on the same principle as a Bop It. In the upper right corner, there is an observation room with a large window where scientists originally evaluated the orphans as the mini-game progressed. The second game is Huggy Wuggy, following the same concept as a carnival whack-a-mole game, with small Huggy Wuggies crawling out of pipes in the walls that you need to hit with your hands before they reach you. The game was designed to test the children's reactionary abilities, and Mommy Longlegs speaks to you throughout the minigame, revealing that the mini Huggies once had strings attached to them, but showing you the cut strings in her hand, implying that she wants them to attack you freely. The final game is Statues, a challenge similar to Squid Game's Red Light, Green Light. The game was designed to determine a child's strength, speed, and agility skills. You must move through an obstacle course while lights flash on and off, freezing when they illuminate, or facing death at the hands of PJ Pugapillar, a massive caterpillar creature that pursues you through the course.
It was always so sad to see the kids go. They called me Mommy because I was the closest thing they ever had to one. But they'd come for games and never come back. They left Mommy to die alone. Mommy didn't deserve that. But you worked here. So if anyone deserves to die alone, it's you.
Every game you play and every obstacle you overcome, children did this too. But for them, success meant being selected for something far worse than failure. The game station represents an ultimate betrayal, a place where play becomes evaluation, where joy becomes data, and where the natural trust children place in games and toys is exploited to determine which of them will be destroyed and rebuilt as something else entirely. Childhood play is how children learn to trust the world, how they develop confidence, and how they experience joy without consequence. Playtime Co. understood this intimately and used that against them. The children never had a moment of realization, never understood that every laugh and every victory was feeding a machine designed to outlast them. Their lives were not torn away. They were absorbed, repurposed, and filed in a folder with their name on it, all so that Playtime Co. could preserve itself through the very people it consumed. The game station was packed with orphans on a daily basis, with a heyday occurring on May 5th of 1992. Hundreds of children passed through here thinking they were just having fun, never knowing the observation rooms were occupied, never knowing their scores were being recorded, never knowing that winning meant losing everything. During your time exploring, you come across a Sir Poopsalot toy that has been tossed to the side as a misfit due to poor reception from focus groups. The presence of Sir Poopsalot speaks to something deeply uncomfortable about Playtime Co.'s philosophy. A toy deemed unmarketable was simply discarded, thrown aside because it threatened the company's bottom line rather than bolstered it. The parallel to the children is impossible to ignore. In this factory, anything that didn't serve the company's continued survival was treated as expendable. Playtime Co. preserved itself by ruthlessly cutting away whatever it deemed a liability, whether that was a failed product or a human life. Now let us shed some backstory on a spider-like creature with elastic limbs and an obsession with games. In January 1991, an orphan named Marie Payne was chosen to become Experiment 1222, the Bigger Bodies Initiative title for Mommy Longlegs. Before she became a monster, Marie was just another child trapped in Playcare, one with a particularly tragic history. Marie is the subject of an incident report submitted by Playcare counselor Claire Harper. The report details a violent nightmare that Marie experienced after falling asleep, which the counselor believed may have been caused by Marie being bullied by a group of boys. She even had to be held down on a stretcher for safe transport, and in the report, Harper refers to Marie as her little girl, possibly hinting that Harper had developed a motherly relationship with her. Marie once again suffered from a very similar incident following the administration of red smoke by Cat Knapp, in Home Sweet Home, causing her to envision a colorless monster and resulting in extreme paranoia and weakness when attempting to get up. Shortly after, Marie was experimented on and reanimated as Mommy Longlegs. Mommy Longlegs was originally created as a way to test Playtime Co.'s new elastic plastic. While she was extremely hostile toward the scientists, she acted warm and motherly toward other Bigger Bodies Initiative experiments, functioning as their protector. This is the tragedy at the heart of Mommy Longlegs. A girl who suffered nightmares and bullying, who found comfort in a maternal counselor, was transformed into something monstrous, and yet that instinct to nurture and protect children survived the transformation. The scientists eventually decided she was the perfect host for guiding and soothing children throughout their time within the game station. Following her attempted integration into the game station, an interview was conducted by Jessica Newman. Mommy remained mute for the first half of the conversation until she started to mutter the name Maria, and then grew aggressive, accusing the scientists of taking Maria from her. Something of Marie pain still existed inside the creature, enough to remember and enough to grieve. Despite her conditioning, she was still hostile toward the staff, so they maintained a 20-yard distance from her at all times, and had Stella Graber create intercom recordings to inform the children about their next game. The company was afraid of its own creation. Although the kids did not quite know what or who Mommy Longlegs was, she became very popular with them, a popularity that eventually led to the release of a Mommy Longlegs toy. Her experiment form was fiercely protective of the children, likely because she was once an orphan herself before being transformed into Mommy. She knew the true reason these kids were playing the minigames and did not want them to suffer the same fate she had endured. This is self-preservation made flesh, a child transformed into a monster yet clinging to the one instinct that kept her tethered to who she once was, the need to protect. Forced to guide other children through the very games that would determine their fate, the company understood that the most effective lure is one who genuinely cares, one who can offer comfort even while leading others toward the same fate she suffered. She turned her role into a means of survival, not just her own, but theirs. The nurturing instinct that made her perfect for the role was the same instinct that threatened the company's ability to preserve itself, because a creature that shields others is one that can no longer be controlled. But 10 years of isolation in an abandoned factory have changed her. When you encounter Mommy Longlegs, that protective nature has curdled into something darker. She speaks of rules obsessively, threatens death for cheaters, and kills the toys who help you survive her games. If you return to the game station area before proceeding to the train station, Bunzo's corpse can be seen hanging from the ceiling, and from the sounds heard earlier, it is implied that Mommy Longlegs killed Bunzo as a consequence of you completing the musical memory challenge. Similarly, returning to the game station area before the game ends reveals the corpses of the mini Huggies on the ceiling. Mommy Longlegs disposed of them in the same manner she killed Bunzo Bunny. When you escape from the rigged statues game, realizing that Mommy intentionally designed it to ensure your demise, she finally snaps. Mommy roars in anger and drops down from the darkness above, her form now torn and dirty as she scowls and yells furiously at you for cheating by escaping statues, and declares how much she hates cheaters.
I asked you to play fair, and you cheated! I hate cheaters! Now, we're going to play one last game!
At the finale of the chapter, Mommy Longlegs goes completely deranged, constantly switching her voice from high-pitched tones to aggressive, loud ones, extending her limbs to freakish angles and abnormally long lengths, and dilating her eyes to complete pitch black. The friendly facade is gone, and what remains is rage, the accumulated trauma of transformation, exploitation, and abandonment finally erupting. Black streaks run beneath Mommy's eyes as she screams about your cheating, looking akin to tears as if she had been crying, and even some of the sounds she makes while chasing you sound like weeping. However, she is so eager to catch you that she gets her left hand stuck in a grinder. You pull the lever and the machine begins to operate. Mommy proceeds to howl in pain and protests against her impending doom. Mommy is killed when the grinder crushes her abdomen. The top half of her body disconnects from her lower half and collapses to the ground, leaving behind a wide smile frozen on her face. Her final words are not about you. They are about something else entirely, something that terrifies her even more than death. She is not focused on the pain but on the fear of becoming a part of him. She screams that you cannot do this to her, that he will make her part of himself.
What have you done? You make me part of him! You can't do this to me!
After Mommy Longlegs is killed by the grinder, a claw belonging to the prototype appears from under a half-closed door to the left, reaching out and taking Mommy's torso away, dragging it back under the door and into darkness. Marie Payne, the orphan who suffered nightmares, who found a mother figure in Claire Harper, who tried to protect other children even after being transformed into a monster, dies screaming about a fate worse than death itself. The prototype collects bodies and grafts them onto itself, and Mommy Longlegs knew it was coming. Her final moments reveal something profoundly tragic about the psychology of trauma. Even in death, Marie Payne was not granted peace. Her last conscious thoughts were consumed not by the agony of being torn apart, but by the terror of losing what remained of her identity. After everything she endured, the nightmares, the bullying, the transformation, the years of isolation, the thing she feared most was absorption, the complete erasure of self. The prototype threatened to take even that. This is what Poppy Playtime does with its monsters. It makes you fear them, forces you to destroy them, and then reveals the child who was stolen and reshaped into the thing you just killed. After Mommy Longlegs is dragged into the darkness, you climb the stairs leading out of the carnage. You find Poppy trapped in webbing in the game station control room, and beside her the final piece of the train code you need to escape. But something has changed. Poppy seems different. Her bubbly, fun personality has given way to a dark and sadistic one, as she coldly asks if you killed Mommy. The cheerful doll who offered to help you escape now speaks with an unsettling flatness, telling you to board the train and that you both need to leave.
Did you kill her? Good. I'll board the train. We need to leave.
You input the code and the train starts, and for a moment, it seems like escape is finally possible. Poppy speaks over the intercom, expressing how scared she was that Mommy would put her back in that case, but you saved her. She calls you perfect, too perfect to lose, and apologizes, saying she cannot let you leave. The train begins to accelerate uncontrollably at an alarming pace, and you attempt to use the emergency stop, but the train derails and crashes, knocking you unconscious. Before you black out, you catch a glimpse of sign for Playcare. A digital alarm clock sound is heard at the end of Poppy's transmission, the same sound documented in log 08502, a recording of one of the prototype's escape attempts. In that log, he constructed a laser pointer from a disassembled digital alarm clock, displaying a profound understanding of mechanical engineering. Additionally, he was presumed to have remotely altered at least 2 VHS tapes at the time of their recording, conveying his messages and instructions to anyone who saw them. The prototype has been watching. The prototype has been manipulating technology throughout the factory. And now, with a simple alarm clock signal, he has sent you crashing toward the one place he wants you to go, deeper into the factory, toward Playcare, where the orphans once lived and where his influence runs deepest. But there is another presence in Chapter 2 worth mentioning, one that stands in stark contrast to every other monster you have encountered.
Preparing for departure. 3, 2, 1. Choo-choo!
When you come up to a closed gate, Kissy Missy appears and walks in a manner similar to Huggy Wuggy. She possesses the same towering frame and the same impossible proportions. But where Huggy stalked you through vents with murderous intent, Kissy simply stares at you for a few seconds before glancing at a nearby lever. She pulls down on it but only manages to make it fall halfway, then attempts it a second time and successfully completes the motion. As the gate slowly rises, Kissy turns away and disappears into the shadows. Kissy Missy appears to be friendly even after seeing that you are an ex-employee. She helps you progress, asks nothing in return, and vanishes without violence. She could be described as a friendlier female counterpart to Huggy Wuggy, one who assists Poppy and you in your efforts. But why? What makes Kissy Missy different from Huggy Wuggy, from Mommy Longlegs, and from all the other experiments that want you dead? The answer may lie in the nature of the experiments themselves. Not all of them broke the same way, and not all of them lost their will to survive on their own terms. Some, like Kissy Missy, seem to retain something, a quiet defiance perhaps, or simply a refusal to let Playtime Co. dictate what survival should look like. Where others were consumed by raw, violent self-preservation, she clings to something more deliberate, the choice of how to endure, not just whether to. A contrast between survival and destruction is a recurring theme throughout Poppy Playtime. The game station, with its bright colors, playful structures, and cheerful music, was a place designed to evaluate children for transformation. Toys that were meant to bring joy became instruments of terror, and now, in the aftermath of the Hour of Joy, those same creations roam the factory not out of malice, but out of a primal need to persist, wardens of an underground nightmare driven by the instinct to endure. The narrator of the story so far tape remarks that it has long been the custom of those who call the factory home to use others for personal gain by stabbing them in the back. Upon the train's derailing, the narrator ends with one last statement, expressing certainty that betrayal came to Poppy naturally. But did it? Poppy speaks of terrible things that have happened and of setting things right. Her tone comes off as menacing, but her language implies good intentions. It is possible she is fighting to preserve not just herself, but others, working against the real main antagonist to prevent more lives from being consumed in the name of someone else's survival. And what awaits you in Playcare, the underground orphanage where children were put to sleep every night, tested in games, and transformed into monsters. The train crash leaves you unconscious at the threshold of even deeper horrors. The game station was where subjects were selected. Playcare is where they were sacrificed, their existence stripped away so that something else could live on. Chapter 3 begins in darkness. Catnap finds you at the train wreckage and captures you, and assuming you might be nearly dead, he drags you into the trash compactor and dumps you in. As you navigate the maintenance tunnels, you hear a telephone ringing in the distance. After finding and answering the phone, you find yourself communicating with someone named Ollie, a child's voice that sounds friendly and helpful.
Hey, can you hear me? You look kind of lost. I don't want you to die, so I'm gonna help you. Check this out. Look at the tube thing on the back wall. Ready? Boom! You can use that battery to open the door.
Through this newfound phone, still working despite being unused for a decade, Ollie promises to guide you while explaining the ongoing situation. He tells you that Playcare is the home of Catnap, one of the smiling critters. There used to be 8 of them, but now it is just him. Ollie goes as far as to claim that Playcare is Catnap's hunting ground and whatever he wants it to be. You return to the crash site and board Elliot's Express, a cable car that descends into the depths of the factory. The ride claims to show you the world through the eyes of a child, and a recording plays over the speakers as Ludwig introduces himself. As the cable car enters the dome, Ludwig announces with enormous pleasure that, as the founder of Playtime Co., he created Playcare, their very own on-site orphanage. He describes it as a school, a playhouse, and a place to belong, an entire ecosystem beneath the surface, dedicated in every inch and detail to ensuring a child's smile. He believes a smile represents hope, love, and understanding, and that the world is lacking smiles. Ludwig's obsession with smiles reveals something deeply unsettling about his psychology. A smile, in its natural form, is an expression of genuine joy. It cannot be manufactured or forced without becoming something else entirely. Yet Ludwig built an empire around the pursuit of smiles, creating creatures with oversized grins that feel more like masks than expressions of happiness. The smiling critters do not smile because they are happy. They smile because they were designed to smile, their exaggerated expressions frozen in permanent displays of hollow cheerfulness. There is something almost desperate in Ludwig's fixation, as though he believed that by surrounding children with enough artificial joy, he could somehow fill the void left by his own losses. But forced smiles are not hope or love or understanding. They are performance, and performance eventually cracks to reveal whatever truth lies beneath. Home Sweet Home is a subdivision of Playcare where the orphans slept, and it is also where Catnap used to reside, using the red smoke to put the orphans to sleep. Every night the children were gassed into unconsciousness, not for their comfort, but so scientists could abduct select children for experimentation without resistance. After entering Home Sweet Home, you inhale the red smoke and fall into a nightmare. You make your way through a maze of seemingly endless corridors, some crossing over themselves, while also coming across a radio recording of news coverage. The radio reports that as of 9:45 a.m., local authorities found the body of a young boy on the estate of the late Elliot Ludwig, discovered in an upstairs bedroom inside a large duffel bag, with officers on scene reporting that the remains appeared to have been disturbed. Playtime Co. itself rushes to defend Ludwig, insisting he could not possibly have been part of the horrific events.
Tragic news this morning. As of 9:45 a.m., local authorities report that the body of a young boy has been found on the estate of the late Elliot Ludwig, an esteemed toy maker and originator of the Playtime Company. At this time, an identity for the child awaits official confirmation. Found in an upstairs bedroom in a large duffel bag. Following recent events, Playtime Co. was asked for any comment regarding the discovery. This is what they had to say. Quote, "It's sickening. Elliot Ludwig was a great man, and those who knew him understood that he was not capable of violence, let alone."
Here is a man on whose property a child's body was found stuffed in a duffel bag, and yet the company's immediate instinct is to protect the narrative. This is self-preservation in its purest form. By defending Ludwig, Playtime Co. defends itself, its reputation, its legacy, its survival. To accept his guilt would mean accepting that the entire foundation the company was built on is rotten. The well-documented phenomenon of an institution rallying around a powerful man despite mounting evidence, choosing loyalty over scrutiny because the alternative would unravel everything. That is exactly what plays out here. Ludwig's legacy of manufactured joy became armor, shielding him and shielding the system that profited from looking the other way. And it was precisely this instinct that allowed Playtime Co. to endure for decades, because confronting what Ludwig truly was would have meant confronting what the company itself had become. As you navigate through the labyrinth, Catnap lurks around in the distant shadows. But who is Catnap, and why does he worship the prototype as a god? To understand this, we need to take a deeper dive into the origins of Catnap. Theo Graham Bell was an orphan test subject who would be reanimated into Catnap as part of the Bigger Bodies initiative. Theodore was a 7-year-old boy who was a troubled orphan. Theo apparently had little to no friends at Home Sweet Home, aside from one unseen companion who Joel Sinclair initially believed was imaginary. A drawing by Theodore depicted him in purple, sitting on his bed while a skeletal arm emerged from underneath. This drawing revealed that Theodore's imaginary companion was in fact the prototype. One day, Theodore received instructions from the prototype to open a maintenance door in Playcare using a leftover grab pack with a green hand. Following the prototype's guidance, Theodore attempted to open the door. However, due to his young age and lack of understanding of how to operate the grab pack, Theodore ended up getting severely electrocuted by the green grab pack hand and needed immediate medical attention. The prototype chose to sacrifice the chance for freedom, and instead chose to carry Theodore to Thomas Clark's office, with Thomas seeing the creature and being utterly confused as to what it was. Regardless, he did CPR on the boy until paramedics arrived. The door was open. Escape was possible. But the prototype, this entity of supposedly pure malice, chose to save a dying child instead. Despite Theodore's injury, he recovered in hospital and returned to play care a few days later, but his recovery was not a mercy. Despite suffering severe trauma, he was later considered a potential candidate to be reanimated into Experiment 1188, a bigger body version of Catnap. Several candidates were considered to become Catnap, but Theodore Grambel was the chosen test subject, leading to him being reborn as Catnap on November 20th, 1990, after a rather difficult surgery that took 4 hours longer than expected. Like the other bigger bodies, Catnap was created with a specialized goal in mind, to oversee play care and put its children to sleep with his red smoke, allowing scientists to abduct select children for experimentation purposes. After his surgery, Catnap reportedly acted very erratically. During his adjustment period on the day of his creation, he broke out of his cell, its door not having been locked properly, and killed 6 employees, leaving behind a trail of blood and tufts of purple fur. Theodore's version of the red smoke would cause orphans to experience gruesome nightmares after they had been put to sleep every night, an example being how Marie Payne kept seeing a colorless monster in her sleep. The same Marie Payne who would become Mommy Longlegs. Theodore's trauma, externalized through chemical smoke, infected the dreams of other children, planting seeds of terror that would grow alongside them until their own transformations. Marie's nightmares were not random. They were Theodore's pain, transmitted through the very mechanism designed to keep the orphans docile. The children of Playcare were not just controlled by Catnap, they were psychologically contaminated by him. The boy who tried to escape became the creature that ensured no one else could. And through it all, Theodore never forgot his friend beneath the bed. While exploring through the caverns, Catnap is depicted engaging in prayer at a shrine devoted to the prototype. His devotion to Experiment 1006 is more likely an evolved version of the friendship between Theodore Grambel and the prototype. The prototype saved his life once, and that act of inexplicable mercy created the most devout follower the factory has ever seen. Theodore's worship is not irrational when viewed through the lens of his experience. In a world where every adult exploited him, where every system was designed to process him into a product, the prototype was the only entity that ever chose his well-being over its own interests. For a child starved of genuine care, that single act of sacrifice would have been transformative, proof that something in the darkness actually loved him. His faith is not madness. It is the logical conclusion of a child who found salvation in the only place it was offered. Given his unwavering devotion to the prototype, Catnap exhibits zero tolerance for non-believers who work against his revered leader. He killed the other smiling critters and mutilated Dog Day, another creature punished for defying the prototype. And now he stalks you through the halls of Playcare, breathing red smoke and waiting for the moment to strike. Playcare was meant to be a beacon of hope, but it became a factory floor for manufacturing obedience, first through games, then through gas, and finally through surgical transformation. Ollie directs you to the school, the next location where a backup generator needs to be restored. But Kissy Missy ambushes you, tackling you to the ground and pinning you down with a growl, her pink fur catching the light in a way that momentarily makes her appear blue, as if Huggy Wuggy himself has found you. Before she can do any harm, Poppy intervenes and informs Kissy that you are innocent and not a threat. A determined yet regretful Poppy explains that she cannot just let you leave. She needs to get rid of the ones who tormented them, and warns that the prototype will kill you if you try to escape. He needs to be destroyed.
Listen, I'm not your enemy, but I can't just let you leave. What's happening down here is bigger than all of us. And I need you, so we can get revenge on those monsters who've tortured you, who've tortured us.
What stands out in this moment is Poppy's bloodshot human eyes, almost as if someone ripped another person's eyes out and placed them into her sockets. Considering she used to be human, that may not be far off. Those eyes, red-veined and unmistakably organic, serve as a constant reminder that the doll standing before you was once a living child. Ludwig's daughter, preserved in porcelain but never fully transformed, still carries pieces of herself that no experiment could erase. While trying to locate and turn on the generator, you encounter Miss Delight, the only remaining teacher of the school, who is revealed to have eaten her sisters due to insatiable hunger in various notes you pick up throughout the building. Miss Delight was a mascot created by Playtime Co., an anatomy teacher who resided in the school alongside her now-deceased sisters. From both her cutout and an intercom message, we can presume that Miss Delight was previously a kind and gentle teacher, always eager to educate the children of Playcare. But everything changed after August 8, 1995. After the hour of joy, she started to descend into madness. Her notes and audio logs demonstrate how she slowly became insane, forming a makeshift weapon in a state of paranoia and calling it Barb, even considering it an actual living person later on. The naming of the weapon reveals something heartbreaking about Miss Delight's psychological deterioration. In isolation, the human mind desperately seeks connection, and when no other beings remain, it will create companions from whatever is available. Barb was not just a tool for survival. Barb became a friend, a confidant, something to talk to in the endless darkness. Miss Delight's madness was not a sudden break but a slow erosion, each day wearing away another layer of sanity until the line between object and person ceased to exist. She was one of 8 Delight teachers in Playcare's school who were left behind a locked door, locked in by catnap, forgotten, and left to starve. Miss Delight writes that she and the other teachers have not been able to eat for days, and that they recently argued over the remaining food. She believes the other teachers think she will be the first to die. Her note reads that there has been no food for days, that the others argued with her over what was left and started glaring and judging, that they blocked the kitchen doorway with their bodies, and that she thinks they have singled her out to die first. Barb eventually taught Miss Delight that if she stopped moving and stood completely still, her sisters would assume she was dead, and she would be able to attack them when they were vulnerable. Miss Delight relied on Barb's supposed advice to ambush the other teachers and consume them to satisfy her hunger. She devoured her sisters to satisfy her desperation to survive, and at the time, it appears she felt extremely guilty about doing this. A note you find reads that she is so sorry that she had to eat, that she had to survive, that she ate them because she had to. Sometime later, she found the door unlocked and met Catnap, whom she guessed was the one who had locked them in. While she was furious at him, she reluctantly held back on attacking. He revealed to her that the orphans were safe but refused to let her see them. Regardless, the two formed an uneasy truce afterward, both relaying what they saw to each other and to the prototype. Miss Delight continuously warns and threatens you, trying to get you to leave while speaking through the school's PA system, but you ignore her warnings.
Oh. Barb says you're looking for your co-workers. Catnap wouldn't like that you're here. You should leave. For your own safety.
Although her psychotic tendencies and actions are apparent, Miss Delight shows signs of her previous identity before you encounter her in person. She actually alerts you to stay away if you want to be safe. There is still a part of her, even if small, that does not want to do what she is forced to do to survive. After you turn the generator back on, she damages it by smashing it with Barb before chasing you through various corridors and classrooms, only moving when you look away. The mechanic of Miss Delight's pursuit carries an echo of Playcare's testing protocols. It's the same fundamental principle behind statues, the red light-green light game that evaluated orphans for transformation. Presumably, Miss Delight was once a child who passed through the game station, so this behavior is deeply ingrained. The game taught her that freezing meant safety, that stillness equaled survival, and that movement during observation meant death. Decades later, trapped in a monstrous form and driven mad by starvation, she still plays by those rules, hunting you with the same mechanics that once determined whether she would be turned into a toy. the factory programmed her hunting patterns using the trauma of her own childhood. The chase is relentless and terrifying, but ultimately, you crush her head underneath a metal rolling gate, killing the insane teacher. She became a monster through isolation, starvation, and the slow erosion of her sanity through the sheer will to survive. Miss Delight is the ultimate expression of what self-preservation looks like when it is stripped of morality, community, and choice, when the only options left are to consume or to cease. After escaping the school, you see Catnap worshipping a shrine devoted to the prototype. He does not notice you and vanishes after you look away. You then enter the playhouse through the caves, where you are met with a horde of ruined critters that you fend off using the flare hand. The ruined critters are what remain of the Smiling Critters line, worn-down miniature versions of themselves that appear as secondary antagonists. These tiny, deteriorated toys swarm through Playcare like insects, following Catnap's orders not out of loyalty but out of fear. On your way out, you discover a cell where you encounter a locked-up, tortured, and legless Dog Day.
You're Poppy's angel. Come to save us. Nothing left to save. Not here. Nor at Catnap's home, Angel. Their home.
Dog Day was a toy produced by Playtime Co. serving as the proclaimed leader of the Smiling Critters, a role he maintained even after being made into an experiment for the Bigger Bodies initiative. Dog Day is a heroic character with a sunny demeanor, always looking at the bright side of things and encouraging others in their time of need. But the creature you find in that cell is barely recognizable. The bigger body version of Dog Day takes on a ragged and monstrous appearance. Completely severed at the waist, all that remains is a thin torso stained with blood and held together with a tan leather belt to keep the remains of his innards from falling out. Catnap and the prototype cut off his legs and hung him on a pole as a form of slow and painful torture. It is shocking how he even managed to stay alive for all these years with such significant blood loss and starvation. Dog Day acknowledges that he knows who you are, calling you Poppy's angel, before revealing that he has been left here for resisting the prototype. Following the events that took place during the Hour of Joy, the critters questioned the prototype's will and tried to fight against his control, resulting in their demise and leaving Dog Day as the sole survivor. The little toys, the ruined critters, follow Catnap to avoid that very fate, and in return, they are fed. He begs you to go to find Poppy and to end this madness.
Listen to me. You need to get out of this place. You need to live. You and Poppy could fix this. End this madness. The torment. Oh no. Oh no. Leave me. Please. Just go. Run!
The ruined critters infest Dog Day before hijacking his body and chasing you with it. You escape, but Dog Day does not. His rebellion against the prototype combined with his final moments shows that he is brave, strong-willed, and determined to do the right thing even in hopeless situations or against impossible odds. Dog Day stood for something. He believed that what the prototype was doing was wrong, and he paid for that belief with 10 years of torture, followed by being consumed from the inside out by the very creatures he once called friends. The Smiling Critters were supposed to represent joy, friendship, and comfort, designed to make children smile. But the Bigger Bodies initiative transformed them into something else entirely, and when some of them tried to resist, tried to hold on to whatever humanity remained inside them, they were punished for it. Catnap worships the prototype because the prototype once saved his life. Dog Day defied the prototype because he saw what it was doing to everyone around him. Both were children once, both were orphans, and both were transformed against their will, but they made different choices, and those choices determined everything that followed. Self-preservation is the unspoken law of Playcare, and Dog Day's mutilated body is the consequence of breaking it. The experiments that obeyed were fed and protected, while the ones who knew too much and threatened to resist were dismembered and displayed as warnings to the others. Dog Day saw everything, understood what was happening, and refused to stay silent, and for that, he was made into an example. The system preserves itself by ensuring that no one else dares to speak up. And somewhere in the depths of the factory, the prototype watches everything. After escaping from Dog Day's possessed corpse, you make your way to the counselor's office, the final location where you must restore power. After rerouting backup power to the statue, Ollie gives you the final battery required to power the gas production zone. But Catnap has been watching and waiting, and now, as you return to finish what you started, he strikes. As you attempt to place the battery into its respective socket, Catnap catches you off guard and chases you up an elevator. During the pursuit, red smoke follows behind and causes you to hallucinate. Eventually, you are pulled into the safe room, where you are tasked with counteracting Catnap's advances while overcharging a green hand receiver in order to use its contents as a threatening attack against him. In the climactic boss fight, you must endure nearly 5 minutes of intense encounters, hallucinations, and close calls with Catnap, the tension building until he finally plunges into the safe room through a ceiling vent. And then comes a moment of cruel irony. As Catnap tries to exhale red smoke in retaliation, you react quickly and fire your overcharged green grab pack hand at him, electrocuting him instantly. Catnap's tragic fate is identical to what he experienced when he was human. The same weapon and the same injury. Theodore Grambell was electrocuted by a green hand when he was 7 years old, trying to escape Playcare with the prototype's help. Now, 15 years later, you electrocute him again, and this time, his god does not come to save him. You set the cat ablaze after defeating him and his red gas, burning his fur off in the process. Then before he can go on the attack again, the prototype's hand appears from a ceiling vent, seemingly offering to help Catnap back to his feet. At first, Catnap cowers away from Experiment 1006, and this reaction gives insight into just how cruel the prototype seemingly is, because despite their apparent close relationship and Catnap's unwavering devotion, Catnap is afraid. But then Catnap kneels in a worshipping manner toward the prototype's reach, and he accepts his death. Rather than being outwitted by you directly, Catnap receives the final blow from none other than his Lord and Savior. We already know from Mommy Longlegs that the prototype incorporates other toys' bodies as part of himself. The creature that saved Theodore's life as a child, that earned his undying loyalty, his worship, and his willingness to torture and kill for 10 years, now kills him and claims his body as raw material. There are two interpretations of this moment. One is that the prototype is aware of Theodore's past and decided to end Catnap's misery, while the other is that the prototype simply does not tolerate failure, and Catnap failed to kill you despite countless opportunities. Either way, the boy who worshipped the monster dies at its hands. With Catnap gone and the red smoke cleared, you reunite with Poppy, and she has something to show you. Poppy reveals the answer to be a simple VHS tape containing security footage of the incident with the toys, an event called the Hour of Joy. On August 8, 1995 at 10:45 a.m., Kissy Missy was being relocated to Playcare via the train, and 15 minutes later, exactly at 11 a.m., the prototype and those allied with him initiated a massive rebellion against their captors and torturers. The tape shows footage of several employees walking in the lobby, and once the clock strikes 11, the bigger bodies go on a rampage. Huggy Wuggy begins to ambush and attack everyone in the room. In the next scene, Mommy Longlegs is shown ripping a man in half before grabbing several people, lifting them up and dropping them from a great height at the game station, resulting in their deaths. Another employee is seen tripping over and subsequently being swarmed and devoured by a mob of ruined critters and mini Huggies. The scene changes to an employee in the school running from Miss Delight and her sisters into a room after being cornered by them in a hallway. Kissy Missy is next seen killing the employees who were transporting her before running after one more in the background. Boxy Boo is then shown devouring employees whole and continuing his rampage elsewhere, and afterward, Catnap is shown walking in the center of Playcare with the floor covered in human bodies while throwing someone into the stairs of the counselor's office. The tape shows a few other rooms now covered in bodies after the massacre, and finally, it is over, ending with a static screen. An estimated 172 bodies are shown during the end of the tape, with the implication that this is only a fraction of Playtime's total staff. Poppy tells you that the guilty and the innocent did not matter. The experiments killed everyone. She then explains that she heard everything that happened and has since been distraught by the needless slaughter of so many lives on that day. Therefore, she has vowed to put an end to the prototype for what he has done. This is the truth you came looking for. What happened to your co-workers, the ones who disappeared in 1995, the reason the factory closed, and the mystery that brought you back after 10 years. The children who were transformed into monsters rose up against the people who made them, but they did not distinguish between the scientists who performed the surgeries and the janitors who cleaned the floors. The guilty and the innocent died together. Poppy and you take an elevator deeper into the factory while Kissy Missy stays behind to activate it. She needs to wait for you to reach the bottom before getting into the elevator and joining later. But something goes wrong. As the elevator lowers into the ground, Kissy is attacked by an unknown entity, and Poppy and you try to turn the elevator back up to save her, but the door concealing the elevator closes and strands you in the deeper levels of the factory, leaving Kissy's fate uncertain. Once you reach the bottom, you hear Kissy Missy screaming.
All right. Once we hit the ground, we need to be cautious. There's something... What? What's she doing? This is... No! We're coming! Just hold on! Come on, go faster! Kissy!
The same Kissy Missy who helped you, who chose not to kill you when she had the chance, who stood with Poppy against the prototype, is now screaming somewhere above you, and you cannot reach her. Her screams echo through the factory's depths like a funeral bell, and there is nothing you can do but listen. Kissy Missy represented hope in this nightmare, proof that not every experiment had lost its humanity, that compassion could survive even the most horrific transformation. Now that hope is being torn apart somewhere in the darkness above, and you are powerless to stop it. The prototype does not forgive defiance, and Kissy Missy chose to defy him when she helped you. Chapter 3 ends with you stranded in the deepest levels of the factory, separated from your only allies, with the prototype watching from the shadows. The truth has been revealed, but the horror is far from over. The experiments were children. The massacre was their revenge. And the prototype wanted you here, and now you have nowhere left to go but down.
The minds of men are easy to break. You believed mine could be broken too.
The plot of Chapter 4 continues after you have discovered your answer and Kissy is attacked by an unknown entity. You and Poppy continue forward. The chapter starts with Poppy leaving you, taking the elevator back to the surface in hopes of saving her friend. You are alone once again, and what awaits you is worse than anything you have seen before. As you begin your journey inward, you are immediately greeted with the sight of giant piles of discarded toys, and in the midst of all the rubble, bloody and limbless toys lie scattered, preyed upon by larger, bigger bodies. Most from the hour of joy retreated to the depths of playtime, feasting on staff, orphans, and other bigger bodies alike. It was survival of the fittest. Following Poppy's departure, you make your way through the depths of Playtime Co., finding tapes and various documents including journal entries from an orphan named Riley, who documented her journey from ending up in Playcare to becoming an experiment. Initially, Riley looked up to Ludwig, stating a desire to open an orphanage with toys like him one day, but it was not long before Riley saw the place for what it was, a prison in hell. As you continue to venture deeper into the facility, you discover Playtime Prison, an underground complex used as a containment facility for experiments and a refuge for surviving staff and orphans. Blood covers the facility walls while decomposed bodies fill the floors. You come across a tape of a discussion between two guards. They talk about how inhuman the children are and mention the pleas for their parents.
Whatever they aren't people anymore. Their cells might as well be cages. They are animals. Sick. Twisted. Just instincts and anger. That's all that's left of them.
The guard's conversation reveals a psychological defense mechanism that allowed Playtime Co.'s atrocities to continue unchecked. By labeling the children as inhuman, the staff could distance themselves from the horror of what they were participating in. It is easier to experiment on monsters than on crying children who scream for their mothers. After being called by a nervous Ollie, you supply power to the locomotive and start to make your way inside the facility. However, the train's reactivation attracts unwanted attention, and this time it is the doctor.
Now what's this? Do I feel something squirming its way beneath my skin? An invasive foreign little germ. After all this time?
The doctor is Harley Sawyer, the architect of every horror you have witnessed. He is the man who conceived the Bigger Bodies Initiative, who oversaw the transformation of orphans into monsters, and who built this entire nightmare from the ground up. You discover him as a brain in a vat surrounded by security bots. Even death could not stop him from continuing his work. You enter the prison and have to fight off a horde of bloodthirsty nightmare critters taking orders from the doctor. You are shown right from the start the desperation and wickedness of the Playtime experiments and must battle your way to safe haven. A Pianosaurus charges at you, but right before it reaches you, long arms grab it and consume it. Moments later, Doughy the Doman walks out after satisfying his hunger. He says he will not eat you and introduces himself, explaining that he was told to expect you. You come to find that he is the leader of Safe Haven and the protector of all the other toys living there. In 1993, Project Doughy was conceived from the Bigger Bodies Initiative. Designated Experiment 1322, the experiment was designed to complete multiple jobs at once. In order to achieve this, Doughy was created from a collection of 3 separate children, as shown by the 3 different colored arms that swirl on his body. There is the natural-born leader, Matthew Hallard, the temperamental Kevin Barnes, and the lively Jack Ayers. 3 personalities fight for control inside a single body. This is the psychology of trauma response in physical form. When children experience extreme suffering, they do not all react identically. Some become aggressive, some withdraw, some dissociate, and some cling even harder to the values they held before the trauma occurred. Jack had been given an invitation to the Playtime Co factory for Christmas 1992, alongside a Doughy the Doman toy. During his tour, Jack was seen away from the rest of the tour group in a dough mixing facility before falling into the vat mixer. A child on a factory tour fell into industrial machinery, and the company's response was not to mourn him but to use him as raw material for their experiments. At a later point, Jack's parents visited the facility and Doughy killed them, the aggression a reflection of Kevin's hostile nature.
The gentle voices lie. I know what they do. They lie, and they poke, and they hurt. Susan, get away from me!
Jack? Mommy won't lie to you, Jackie. Mommy won't hurt you. I'd never hurt you.
Hey! Hey! Open this door! Oh, God. Susan! Please! Open the door! Please!
Most of the time, Matthew's kind-hearted personality shines through, and for 10 years Doughy defended the survivors, not because anyone asked him to, but because it was the right thing to do. While running through the facility, Kissy, Missy, and Poppy pull you through a small crevice to save you from a large creature roaming the halls. Kissy is badly injured. Parts of her head are bloody and her arm is in a sling. Whatever attacked her in that elevator left its mark. Poppy reveals the truth. The orphans were not killed during the hour of joy. They were taken. They are below in the labs, the prototype's home, alive but sleeping. After everything that has happened, the game station, the transformations, and the massacre, some of them still survived. The prototype kept them in its lair for 10 years, unconscious and waiting. Now Poppy wants to burn down the factory and bring the prototype down with her. And while this sounds like a noble plan where Poppy becomes the martyr, you quickly realize that she wants to make sure no one gets out of playtime alive, meaning many innocent lives would perish alongside the monster. Doey does not agree with this plan, but most blindly follow Poppy, even though they do not fully trust her. It also turns out that Poppy knew about the Hour of Joy, making her disappearance far more questionable, a fact confirmed both by the doctor and the children in Safe Haven. Poppy had not been seen since the Hour of Joy, meaning she left Doey to protect the other toys for an entire decade. The doll who asked for your help, who guided you through the factory, and who spoke of setting things right, she knew the massacre was coming and did nothing to stop it. She vanished and let others suffer in her absence. To defeat the doctor, you power up all 3 terminals in the main area while getting ambushed by robots under his control. The room is a maze of corridors filled with doctor clones. His life source is threatened as you overload the system. The energy surge causes an implosion, killing the doctor. His last words declare that you saved no one. Although you manage to defeat the doctor, the prototype patiently sets one last gambit into motion by stealing the explosives and using them to bomb Safe Haven, causing the meltdown of its chief defender, Doey the Doughman.
The prototype. I lost track of him in the tunnels. Have you seen him? Was he at the Foundation? Or was he... What? What's going on? I let him away, didn't I? The generator's fine. It's... Oh, no.
A massacre befalls Safe Haven, and Doey blames himself for not being there to protect his friends, his family. He wants someone else to blame, and who better than the person who disturbed their relatively peaceful existence in the first place? Doey transforms into a reptilian monster with 3 heads in its mouth, representing the 3 boys that make Doey who he is. In the end, his shelter is destroyed, triggering all the children's traumas, and in his moment of weakness and despair, Doey turns against you. Once again, the game forces you to defeat someone who deserves to live. As Doey dies, he rages on about how he cannot trust anyone, lamenting his failure to be better and to save the other toys, and finally apologizing for his actions. 3 children, 3 voices, saying sorry for something that was never their fault.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And then comes a revelation that changes everything. The prototype reveals to you, Poppy and Kissy Missy, that Ollie was actually himself, and that everything has been a facade designed to lure Poppy back to him.
Ollie! Something's gone horribly wrong. The safe haven...
Shelf ventilation block B6. Is this where you are, Poppy?
What?
Stay where you are.
And listen closely. You're not going to run. You're not going to fight. The charade is over.
Who is this?
An obvious question with an obvious answer.
You... What did you do with Ollie?
I'm right here, Poppy.
The friendly voice on the phone, the child who guided you through play care, and the ally who warned you about catnap and helped you navigate the orphanage. It was the prototype all along. Ollie, who was once real, died a long time ago. As Ollie, the prototype acted like he cared about the experiments, opting to help you and Poppy in order to manipulate you into following his orders. Every instruction, every warning, and every piece of helpful advice, it was all designed to lead you exactly where the prototype wanted you to go. Trapped in what is clearly a life or death situation, you, Poppy, and Kissy Missy have to come face to face with the reality that you were fooled. Poppy abandons you. After 4 chapters of asking for your help and promising that together you could set things right, she runs to save herself, leaving you and Kissy Missy to die. The room explodes, causing the floor below you to give way, Kissy Missy grabs you and tries to save you from the fall, but her wounded arm severs from her body and you plummet to the ground.
As for you two, try to land on your feet.
You are now in the labs at the bottom of Playtime's facility. Inside is a walkway leading to an entrance surrounded by a garden of poppy flowers. The same flowers that gave the company its name. The same organic material used to create Experiment 814, the first attempt at resurrection, and the same substance that flows through every transformed child, every monstrous toy, and every corrupted mascot. Here, at the heart of the nightmare, they grow in neat rows, as if tended by someone who still cares about their arrangement. In a small antechamber before the labs, you find a tape that subjects you to a lecture from Leith Pierre. The same cold and arrogant voice that warned you on your first day. The same man who helped Playtime Co. descend into madness. The chapter ends with an ominous tape from Leith Pierre confirming that scientists work in the area and that an alarm goes off when the tape is played. After finding the last tape and putting it into a TV, the facility alarm system activates. You are trapped in a room, and none other than Huggy Wuggy comes charging at you. The mascot you thought you killed in Chapter 1 survived his fall and is waiting for you in the underground labs. Someone kept him alive and someone repaired him. Red smoke starts filling the room as Huggy furiously tries to bring the door down. You eventually pass out while trapped in the chamber. Chapter 4 ends with you trapped, alone, and surrounded by horrors. The ally you trusted was the enemy all along. The friend you followed abandoned you, and the monster you thought you had already defeated is coming back for more. Self-preservation has come full circle. The prototype, whatever it once was, has been manipulating everyone and everything from the very beginning, pulling strings to ensure its own survival at any cost. The alliances you formed, the safety you built, the moments of hope you clung to, all of it was simply another variable it accounted for. And now, with safe haven destroyed and your allies scattered or dead, your own survival demands the one thing every instinct warns against, going deeper into the darkness where the very thing that orchestrated all of this waits. The cruel irony of self-preservation is laid bare. The drive to survive is what pulls you forward, and it is exactly what the prototype is counting on.
It's time to go.
Everyone has a weakness. This is our chance.
Chapter 5 begins with a commercial for a new Playtime Co toy. This time, it is the Wrong Side Outimals, odd little plush toys that change form when you turn them inside out. Cute, colorful, and harmless, the kind of toy a child would squeeze and flip around for hours. But the trailer quickly begins to warp as the footage flickers between bright, colorful shots of children and dark, grim clips of an unknown figure dissecting and dismembering a variety of other plushies. Soon, blood and flesh-like matter appear mixed in with the fabric and stuffing, before the intro ends with a still shot of two haunting, Frankenstein-esque toys sitting amongst an array of medical tools. The commercial tells you everything you need to know about what awaits in the labs before you even set foot inside. The Wrong Side Outimals are inside-out plushies with heads shaped like a critter's, with eyes resembling the backs of plastic eyes and stripes of fur that extend to the abdomen. On their arms, hairs extend to the hands with some of them forming fingers, and a red liquid resembling blood circulates through the hands. These are not ordinary toys gone wrong. The Wrong Side Outimals are experiments produced presumably by the prototype. Somewhere in the darkness of this factory, the entity that orchestrated the Hour of Joy has been continuing its work, taking the remnants of the smiling critters line and turning them inside out, exposing the flesh and blood that Playtime Co. always worked so hard to hide beneath the colorful fur. The mechanism of their transformation carries a disturbing symbolism. To turn a wrong-side animal inside out, you must unzip its mouth, its smile. The children inside never chose to smile. They were made to, their suffering hidden behind a cheerful mask they could never remove. In a story centered on self-preservation, that forced smile was the company's ultimate tool of concealment, ensuring that no matter how much pain the experiments felt, the outside world would only ever see happiness. The prototype understands what that smile truly represents and has found a way to undo it. By unzipping the mouth, it exposes what Ludwig always intended to hide, the raw, tortured truth beneath the manufactured joy. And then, before you even get the chance to digest what you just saw, you are back in the factory, picking up from the exact spot where the last chapter left off. You find yourself trapped in a lab room filling with red smoke, staring at the door that separates you from a very angry and very alive Huggy Wuggy. It does not take long for his relentless bashing to break through the metal and glass barrier, and the moment it gives way, it is time to run. Four chapters ago, Huggy Wuggy was a mascot standing on a pedestal. Now he is a battered and patched up predator with organs spilling out, a creature who survived a fall that should have killed him, and he is faster and angrier than ever before. Shortly after you enter the area, Huggy makes another appearance and strips you of your grab pack, leaving you quite literally unarmed. You are defenseless in the deepest level of the factory, surrounded by creatures you cannot fight and a mascot that wants you dead. Chapter 5 plunges you into the recycling and reclamation facility, but beyond the jump scares and hallways lies a web of secrets most overlook. Sterile corridors, crushing stations, and conveyor belts tell a story of their own, revealing a place where toys were processed, recycled, and reclaimed. In any other context, this would simply be an industrial waste management area, but in Playtime Co., where the toys are made from children, the implications of a recycling facility become nauseating. As you survive the chase by Huggy Wuggy, you end up here and become acquainted with the wrong-side Automals as minor enemies. Feral Automals lurk in darkened hallways. Some pause as if observing you, while others mimic Huggy Wuggy's hunting patterns. They are not mindless, and something lingers inside them, some residual spark of the toys they were made from. They block doorways, swarm corridors, and retreat only when exposed to light. Eventually you find Globy, and it is more than just a light source. This star-shaped companion serves multiple purposes, acting as a flashlight, a black light that reveals hidden UV messages and doodles, and more. Globy also appears to be sentient, as the small face on its screen changes depending on your current situation, notifying you of hidden messages, grinning when you pick up a collectible, and grimacing in fear when a threat draws near. But the most welcome feature is practical rather than endearing. Globy can play audio tapes while you move, allowing you to listen to recordings as you navigate the facility rather than standing still beside a VHS player. In a place where remaining stationary can get you killed, being able to absorb the story while running for your life is no small advantage. And then, from the darkness, a voice calls out, not hostile or mechanical, but warm and surprised. A bear-like creature with an orange-brown tone, a missing eye covered by a leather patch, and a cane supporting a misshapen leg limps toward you. A friendly, wrong-side Automol named Giblet saves you from being attacked.
Take it off! Take it off! You alright? You're not... You're the one they've been talking about!
He introduces himself and immediately recognizes you, the one who put Mommy in the grinder, the one who gave the cat a nap. Down here, they are calling you the Playtime Butcher. He asks about Poppy and Safe Haven, mentioning that he has heard things, then tells you that you cannot stay here and that he has a place, urging you to follow him. Giblet knew Poppy before everything happened, before the transformations, before the hour of joy, and before the factory became a graveyard. He mentions that Poppy's heart has always been in the right place, but that she has been behind glass for too long. He introduces you to Chum Chompkins, his companion, and together they form an unlikely alliance in the deepest level of the prototype's domain.
Hey, that grabber looks good on you. This is Chum Chompkins, my guy on the inside. We, sort of look out for each other. Chum, this is who everyone's been talking about. Poppy's angel. The Playtime Butcher. Come on, I was just filling in Chum on our plan.
Giblet is not naive about what you are facing. He explains that you are not the first to try and take out the prototype. Everyone who tries fails. He describes how the prototype is so saturated with that pink substance that you could cut him in half and he would simply put himself back together. But everyone has a weakness, and Playtime Co. conducted all kinds of studies, poking him with needles, making spreadsheets, and all of that science is here in the labs. He insists that this is your chance. He directs you to the boilers, where gear was tossed down after everything went wrong. As your grab pack was taken from you by Huggy Wuggy, you will need to obtain a new one from the boilers after meeting up with Giblet. Once you make your way through narrow ventilation shafts and hallways infested with wrong-side outimals, you arrive in a room with a giant Brawn, the dinosaur, munching on a grab pack. Once rearmed, Giblet congratulates you and tells you to meet him in R&D. But the new grab pack is not the same as the old one. The tools on the new attachments are more complex, more powerful, and better suited to the deeper horrors that await. Where you are going, simple grabbing and pulling will not be enough. Meanwhile, as you navigate the labs, you overhear things you were not meant to hear. A tape plays of Giblet being forced by the prototype to harm warehouse workers, and his resistance reveals something important about the nature of revenge in this place. He may want retribution like the rest of the toys, but only against those directly responsible for their suffering, not the complicit ones who may not have even known the true horrors occurring beneath the factory floor. Giblet, limping through the darkness on a damaged leg, wearing a patched coat, and carrying a cane fashioned from an electric bat, represents something rare in this factory. He embodies hope, the quiet and stubborn kind that comes from someone who has survived the worst and still believes that fighting back is worth the effort. He is a broken thing too, but he refuses to stay broken. Eventually you discover another tape. It's between the prototype and Poppy. He mocks her for hiding in her room and for running away from the rebellion she started. Poppy stammers in response. She cannot be how they need her to be, and she did not ask for them to look at her like a leader. The prototype cuts through her words, telling her that she failed, that it scared her, and that she ran like a child. Poppy pleads with him to stop and to let the orphans go, arguing that even if he kills her, he will be fighting the others for years.
Here you are, hiding in your room, running away from the rebellion.
The conversation between them carries the weight of something ancient and deeply personal. The prototype is not simply threatening her, he is disappointed in her. He speaks to her with the familiarity of someone who has known her for a very long time and with the cruelty of someone who believes they know what is best for her. As you make your way through the labs, you discover documents detailing experiments with something called growth medium, a substance that, when tested on plant life, produces results both intriguing and horrifying. Plant roots took on the qualities of weeds, tangling as though to choke neighboring growth before forming a coalescing shared system. During one unprotected interaction, a specimen latched onto an assistant, and when the resulting produce was tested on animals, internal consumption began within hours, similar to fungal degradation of organic tissue. The conclusion is stark. All produced seeds, fruits, and vegetables are to be considered toxic and parasitic. A separate reminder warns staff that genetically modified vegetation is not to be removed, noting someone has been taking citrus from the lab as a joke. A photosynthesis equation scrawled on a whiteboard reveals the foundation of these horrors, the basic chemical process by which plants convert carbon dioxide and water into life. Someone in this facility studied how organisms create energy from nothing, and that knowledge was twisted into the growth medium experiments. On the same wall, a message announces an annual celebration of Dr. Sawyer's removal, organized by someone named Anthony, evidence that even within Playtime Co's ranks, not everyone embraced the madness. Some employees recognized the monsters among them, though they lacked the power to stop what was happening. The vines now consuming the facility embody self-preservation stripped to its most primal form. No conscience, no conflict, only the drive to spread and survive. The parasitic nature of the plants mirrors what Playtime Co. did to the children, latching onto hosts, consuming them from within, and using their bodies to fuel further growth. The factory is being devoured by its own creation. Once you make it through, before you can grow too weary of sterile hallways and horrifying machines, you find yourself passing through a twisted play park and arriving at what feels like a giant doll's house full of fake walls and manic laughter. A phrase written on the door leading to Lily's domain reads as a warning to abandon all hope if you smile here, a twisted reference to the inscription above the gates of hell in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. The original line warns those who enter that hope is forfeit, but the altered version warns those who smile. The distinction matters because it reframes the entire nature of the threat. In Dante's vision, simply crossing a threshold condemned you, but in Sweet Street, the act of smiling is what seals your fate. Ludwig's obsession with smiles may have been his own defense mechanism, a way of convincing himself that his creations were happy, that what he was doing was good. The smiles were never for the experiments, they were for Ludwig, a way of preserving his own sense of self, while orchestrating unspeakable horrors. But beyond this door, the rules invert entirely. The warning suggests that whatever lurks inside does not prey on fear or despair, but on the very symbol Ludwig weaponized to protect his conscience. In Sweet Street, the forced smiles that shielded Ludwig from guilt now mark you as a target. The mask he made others wear to preserve his own sanity has become a liability for anyone who enters. But to further understand what awaits you beyond that door, you need to understand who built this place and why. Gracie Green, better known as Experiment 1468 and Lily Lovebraids, is one of the secondary antagonists of Chapter 5, but her story does not begin as a monster. It begins as something arguably worse. As the former wellness and integration counselor for Playtime Co., she was an integral figure in the brainwashing and memory removal of several orphans as part of the Bigger Bodies initiative. Every orphan who was surgically fused with a toy, every child who woke up inside a new body with no memory of who they used to be, passed through a process designed to strip them of their identity. Gracie Green was the person who ran that process, the one who made the children forget. Anytime a toy wouldn't conform to their ways, Gracie would have them be sent to the bad toy box to be punished. She was the architect of identity destruction, not through scalpels and operating tables, but through the systematic erasure of selfhood. Mommy Longlegs, Catnap, Dog Day, and Huggy Wuggy, every experiment who forgot the child they once were, had Gracie Green to thank for it. At one point, you get glimpses into Huggy Wuggy's training, and as you play games with Gracie through the television, you see the truth. The toys around you do not conform, so you place them in the bad toy box and hear them get ground to pieces.
Wait till the friends, come and play! Playing with friends is so much better! Keep going! Nice work, everyone! Isn't this so fun? Isn't this? I guess somebody's out. Huggy, why don't you give them a timeout? Put them in the bad toy box.
No, please, tell me who I am! Please, don't put me in the box! Don't put me in the box, I'll be good! Oh, please, don't put me in the box!
Huggy Wuggy's relentless pursuit of intruders, Catnap's unwavering devotion to the prototype, Mommy Longleg's obsession with rules. These behaviors were not personality traits but survival strategies beaten into them through the constant threat of the grinder. However, during the hour of joy, Gracie was captured by the rebelling toys, and under orders from the prototype, she would be forcibly converted into a toy as karmic punishment for her crimes. The children she had stripped of their memories and identities rose up, and the prototype, the orchestrator of the massacre, decided that death was not enough for Gracie. Instead, he ordered that she receive the same treatment she had inflicted on so many others, and she was made into Lily Love Braids. She now spends her days in Sweet Street going insane from isolation while her own brainwashing program is used against her until she fully forgot her past, constantly wishing that the prototype would bring her to a better place.
Hey there, friends. It's a sunny day.
Miss Gracie. You're Miss Gracie. Your first name, what was it?
What are we talking about, Miss Gracie? Is this another lesson?
Just ignore her. She's not real. It's only you here. Just you.
Aren't I real, Miss Gracie? Miss Gracie says I'm real. I
am Miss Gracie. Snap out of it.
Silly. She's on the screen. She's not actually in the room with us.
Look around. My hands. Plastic. My face. I thought.
How embarrassing! I can't believe I thought you were actually in the room, Miss Gracie! Egg on my face!
In a story about self-preservation, Gracie represents the ultimate failure. She preserved herself by destroying the identities of children, and now her own identity has been taken as payment. Every tool she wielded to survive has been turned against her, and the person who once held absolute power over who others were allowed to be can no longer remember who she herself used to be. The prototype keeps Lily on a short leash. At one point, you overhear the prototype finds her hiding and gives her direct orders. He tells her to repair the security system, to make sure there are eyes everywhere, and to find Poppy before she does something she will regret. He reminds her that nothing is more important to her than this task, and that she knows the price for failure. Lily responds with a meek acknowledgement, and in that brief exchange you can hear the dynamic between them. He is the master, and she is the servant who desperately wants his approval, waiting for the day he finally takes her to a better place that does not exist. You explore further and discover Poppy and Kissy locked away. She apologizes for running away, for not letting you leave at the game station, for everything. She explains that they tried to cross Sweet Street to reach the orphans but did not know Lily was still here. Poppy asks you to find a way to get them out, but you have to deal with Lily's demands first. She is excited, thrilled that you are here. She tells you to help find the friends because they would hate to miss the party. She gushes about how the special guest is going to love the preparations, and asks you to set the mood with music while she goes to prepare her famous sandwiches. Lily is highly energetic and possesses childlike mannerisms that border on insanity, and she displays a fondness for tea parties, sitting down and talking to the toys she has brought there. She whispers into a severed candy cat head that the special guest is going to kill them all, but not Poppy, because she has always been his favorite. She calls Poppy a little asking Annie, mocking her pleas to be released from her case and to rescue the orphans. You find a moment to sneak away to help break Kissy and Poppy out of their cage. Lily becomes enraged that you haven't been following her commands for the tea party and determines you must be bored, so it's time for a game. Lily forces you to play along with her games for a while, including a very twitchy game of red light, green light. She realizes Kissy and Poppy are free, so she is sure to bring us all back to the table to resume the tea party. However, the tea party does not last long. The prototype arrives and, angered by Poppy's rebellion, disfigures her. When Lily tries to grab Poppy with her braid, the prototype turns on her, the servant who overstepped. The party collapses into chaos and Lily's fragile world shatters. Kissy is furious the prototype hurt her friend and attacks, releasing a large amount of the red smoke. It is time to run.
What did you do with them? Where are the orphans? Uh-oh, she doesn't know.
I did. What I had to.
There.
In a better place now.
You're a monster!
I built us a home and kept us safe. And you repaid me by bringing in an outsider. Plotting to
destroy
the only heaven you or I
will ever get. I had hoped your time in the case would help you see
reason. I see now.
This was my fault.
You act
like a child because
a child
is what they made you.
You're hurting me!
Don't be afraid.
I can fix you.
Poppy?
I
can make
you
better.
Stop!
And you,
the outsider.
Butcher,
they call you. Shall we see what you look like?
Wrong side out.
Don't touch her.
What follows is fury. Lily screams that she let you into her house, that she let you come to her tea party, and that this is how you repay her. As she is about to run towards you on the next cloud platform, you use your grab pack to separate the platform Lily is standing on from its hook. Lily falls a long distance to the ground and the cloud platform falls on top of her, crushing her and ultimately killing her. Gracie Green spent her career preserving herself by erasing the identities of others, and her punishment was the complete annihilation of her own. In Playtime Co., even the architects of horror cannot preserve themselves from becoming part of it. Even though Lily is gone, the chaos does not end. It shifts. You reconvene with Giblet, Poppy, and Kissy. Giblet tells Poppy that she is going to be okay, and that they will find a way to fix her. But Poppy, disfigured and barely holding together after what the prototype did to her, recognizes Giblet's voice and asks what the prototype did. Giblet deflects and tells her not to worry about him, then says something that carries far more weight than he probably realizes. The things they did to us, that does not have to be who we are. It is a line that echoes what Doey the Doughman said in the previous chapter, that the experiments are not just things gone wrong, that they are people. But where Doey said it as a plea for recognition, Giblet says it as a declaration of freedom. The abuse, the transformations, and the decades of torment, none of it has to define them. In a series where every character has been fighting to preserve something, their bodies, their memories, their lives, their sanity, Giblet suggests a different kind of preservation entirely. Not the desperate clinging to existence that turned Mommy Longlegs into a killer or Catnap into a zealot, but the preservation of selfhood, of choice, of the person you decide to be rather than the thing you were made into. It is the first real suggestion that survival does not have to mean losing yourself, that something can be preserved even when everything else has been stripped away. But first, you have to survive. You need to find the prototype's weakness, which is stored on a backup. Giblet tells you that the plan is still the plan. Next stop is the tram in reanimation. Throughout your adventure, you found many letters from Dr. Chloe Arkins to her daughter, but this one reveals the twisted justifications that allowed ordinary people to participate in Playtime Co.'s horrors. Arkins writes knowing full well her letters never reach her child, admitting she writes them more for herself now than for her daughter. She describes the project's goal as putting an end to death, imagining a world where children never have to fear growing old or watching their bodies give way to disease. The motivation is personal. When Arkins explained death to her daughter after her grandfather passed, she watched the child's tears turn to terror as the reality of mortality set in. That fear is what drove Arkins to accept the offer, hoping to build a world where her daughter would never have to face an end. But the cost of that dream weighs heavily on her. She admits she has done things she never thought herself capable of, that she cannot honestly call herself a good person anymore, that she has become a monster. Arkins is not preserving herself but her idea of her daughter's future, and in doing so, she has destroyed everything she once was. The letters themselves are a form of self-preservation too, a way of convincing herself that the horrors she commits are worth it, that the monster she has become still has a purpose. You continue through the facility, and just as Huggy is about to attack, you lure him to reunite with Kissy. For 4 chapters, Huggy Wuggy has been a force of singular violence, a mascot-turned-killing machine who chased you through vents, survived a fall into a dark abyss, and clawed his way back to hunt you again. And here, in the depths of the labs, the only thing that stops him is not a weapon, or a trap, or a crushing machine. It is Kissy Missy, his counterpart, the pink to his blue, a feminine counterpart created by Playtime Co. to further boost their profits. Somewhere inside Experiment 1170, beneath the rage and the programming and the decade of feral isolation, there is still enough of the child he used to be to recognize her to stop. They share a moment together, connecting on a level they have both been yearning for so long. And then the prototype arrives. Just like that. The mascot of the franchise, the first monster you ever encountered, and Kissy Missy, the only experiment who was kind to you from the very beginning, the one who opened the gate for you in Chapter 2, who waved at you from a lift, who lost an arm trying to save you at the end of Chapter 4, are gone, impaled by the creature who orchestrated every horror in this factory. There is no boss fight, no dramatic standoff. The prototype simply appears and ends them, as casually as he once extended his claw to drag away Mommy Longleg's body, as dispassionately as he impaled Catnap through the mouth. They are tools that have outlived their usefulness, and he discards them like everything else. With Huggy and Kissy gone, there is no time to grieve. The prototype pursues you, Poppy, and Giblet on a moving train, and the tram sequence that follows is desperate, frantic, and built on the last threads of hope that anyone is getting out of this alive. Giblet has an idea. He is going to switch tracks and put up some speed, and you need to be ready to jump. You manage to derail the train in a crash, but the prototype walks out of the wreckage unharmed. Giblet was right all along. You could cut him in half, and he would just put himself back together. The prototype emerges from the train. Giblet hides while you and Poppy head for the doors, but the prototype catches up and gives you the same treatment he gave to Huggy and Kissy, a sharp stab through the chest. takes Poppy, carrying her away into the depths of the facility as your vision blurs and your body fails. What follows is uncertain. Whether you dream of the next event or it is reality remains unclear. The prototype drops you into a vat of Poppy gel, the same substance used to repair and preserve the experiments. A disembodied voice speaks as everything fades, saying that should you come back years later with your conscience finally getting the better of you, may you descend into the dark and the dust. Welcome home. The prototype's physical form tells the story of every experiment that failed to escape his grasp. His body is a patchwork of stolen parts: Mommy Long Leg's elongated arm, Kissy Missy's arm, Huggy Wuggy's arm, and Cat Nap mounted on his rear like a trophy. Each limb represents a defeated enemy, a consumed ally, or a broken follower absorbed into something greater than themselves. He does not simply kill, he collects, grafting the remnants of others onto himself in a grotesque display of dominance. The voices he uses throughout the series follow the same logic, shifting between the tones of those he has encountered and consumed like a living tape recorder cycling through stolen memories. When he speaks, you never know whose voice will emerge. It could be Mommy's desperate pleas, Cat Nap's reverent whispers, or something else entirely. The effect is deeply unsettling because it strips the dead of their final possession, their own words. The prototype does not just take bodies. He takes identities, wearing them like masks, and speaking through mouths that no longer belong to anyone. It is believed that the prototype may be Ollie, the son of Elliot Ludwig and Poppy's brother. A connection like this would reframe every interaction between them as a fractured family drama playing out in monstrous form. His obsession with Poppy takes on new dimensions under this lens, transforming possessiveness into something resembling twisted sibling protection or familial control corrupted beyond recognition. Earlier in the chapter, you overheard him mock her for running away from the rebellion she started, for failing and fleeing like a child. He tells her that he built them a home and kept them safe, and that she repaid him by bringing in an outsider and plotting to destroy the only heaven she and he will ever get. He says he had hoped her time in the case would help her see reason, and that he sees now it was his fault. She acts like a child because a child is what they made her. Every word drips with possessiveness dressed as care. He does not see Poppy as an equal or even as a separate being. He sees her as something that belongs to him, something that has malfunctioned and needs to be repaired. The phrase about making her better is not a promise of healing but a threat of control. It is the same logic that Playtime Co. used when they took orphans and turned them into toys. The belief that a person can be fixed by stripping away everything that makes them who they are and replacing it with something more useful. The prototype learned this philosophy from the company that created him, and he has internalized it so thoroughly that he cannot distinguish between love and ownership. The voices the prototype uses are not communication but domination, a constant reminder that everyone who crosses his path eventually becomes raw material for his continued existence. In his mind, this is not cruelty. It is preservation, the ultimate form of keeping others safe by making them part of himself forever. He cannot lose what he has already consumed. By dropping you into the Poppy gel rather than killing you outright, the prototype reveals that you too have become a component in his design. The substance that preserves and repairs experiments now flows through your wounds, binding you to the factory in ways you cannot yet understand. The disembodied voice welcoming you home is not a greeting, it is a claim of ownership. You are no longer an outsider investigating missing employees. You are part of the collection now, another piece the prototype has chosen to keep rather than discard. Giblet discovers you and shocks you back to life. You and Giblet press forward into the data center. It is not over yet. You reach the area where the backup is supposed to be, the thing you have been searching for all chapter now right in front of you. The computer activates, and then the eye opens. The backup is not just some files or documents that might help you defeat the prototype. It is much worse than that. It is none other than Harley Sawyer, the man behind converting orphans into the monstrous toys you have been constantly evading. The same Dr. Harley Sawyer whose consciousness you encountered in Chapter 4 as the Doctor, the brain in a vat, who tested you, toyed with you, and treated the entire Bigger Bodies initiative as an intellectual exercise. The man who believed there was an invaluable secret inside Experiment 1006 and spent years poking, prodding, and studying him to uncover it. The man whose research created the very horrors that have been trying to kill you since the moment you stepped into this factory. The eye flickers and looks around before dropping one final, haunting line to close out the chapter.
This is a rather interesting turn of events.
That is how Chapter 5 Broken Things ends, with a question that sits in your stomach like a stone and no resolution. The one person who might know how to destroy the prototype, who might hold the scientific data Giblet has been chasing this entire chapter, is right here. Poppy Playtime is, at its core, a study in what people will do to survive. Huggy Wuggy hunts because he was conditioned to. Mommy Longlegs clung to rules because they gave her control. Catnap worshipped the prototype because worship meant safety. Miss Delight devoured her sisters because starvation left no alternative. Dog Day refused to bend and spent 10 years paying for it. The prototype absorbs others because in his mind, consumption is the purest form of preservation. And Harley Sawyer uploaded his consciousness into a machine because even death was not allowed to end his work. Every monster in this factory was shaped by the same question: what are you willing to sacrifice to keep existing? The children sacrificed their bodies. The staff sacrificed their morality. The experiments sacrificed each other. And now you stand in the wreckage of all those choices, alive for reasons you cannot explain, searching for answers in a place that was built on the systematic destruction of everything that makes life worth preserving. In the end, Playtime Co. did not create toys, it created survivors. And survivors, as this factory has proven again and again, are the most dangerous things of all.